In the golden age of Hollywood, when careers could crumble with a single whispered rumor, 15 actors carried secrets that could have destroyed everything they had built. Behind the glamorous facades and romantic leading roles, these performers lived double lives, signing fake marriage contracts, enduring conversion therapy, and hiding their true selves from a world that wasn't ready to accept them. Tonight, their stories emerge from the shadows. Stories of courage born from desperation, of love hidden behind carefully constructed lies, and of the ultimate choice between fame and authenticity. The final revelation will shake everything you thought you knew about Hollywood's golden era. Before we begin this journey into Hollywood's hidden truth, subscribe and hit the notification bell, because these are the stories the industry never wanted you to hear. Wentworth Miller, The Prison of Perfection. The steel bars of Fox River Penitentiary were nothing compared to the invisible prison Wentworth Miller built around himself. As Michael Scofield in Prison Break, he embodied masculine perfection, brilliant, brooding, and utterly captivating to millions of viewers worldwide. But while audiences celebrated his on-screen genius, Miller was orchestrating his own elaborate escape plan from a different kind of confinement. For years, he deflected questions about his personal life with the same precision his character used to plan prison breaks. Every interview became a performance, every public appearance another carefully constructed lie. The pressure to maintain the image of the perfect straight leading man was suffocating, yet Miller endured it because the alternative seemed impossible. The turning point came in 2013 when Russia invited him to a film festival. The same Russia that had just criminalized LGBTQ+ existence. Miller's refusal wasn't just a declined invitation. It was a declaration of war against his own silence. In a powerful open letter, he revealed his truth. He was gay, and he could no longer pretend otherwise. The letter spread like wildfire, transforming Miller from a reluctant closet case into an unlikely hero. By 2020, he made an even bolder statement. He would no longer accept heterosexual roles. For some, it was career suicide. For Miller, it was finally breaking free. Luke Evans, the Welsh warrior's quiet revolution. Luke Evans never intended to become a symbol of anything. Born in the valleys of Wales, he simply wanted to sing, act, and live his life without apology. But Hollywood had different plans for the man who would become Gaston in Beauty and the Beast, Dracula in Dracula Untold, and a scene stealer in the Fast and Furious franchise. In London's theater district, Evans lived openly and authentically. His sexuality was never a secret among those who mattered. But when Hollywood came calling, so did the warnings. Stay quiet. Don't come out. Your career depends on it. The agents spoke in hushed tones about other actors who had made the mistake of being honest. Evans chose a different path, strategic silence. He refused to lie about having girlfriends, wouldn't fabricate romantic relationships for tabloids, and never signed on to the elaborate deceptions that trapped so many of his contemporaries. His silence wasn't shame, it was sovereignty over his own narrative. What made Evans remarkable wasn't just his refusal to lie, but his refusal to be defined solely by his sexuality. He understood something his advisors didn't, that authenticity has its own magnetic power. When he finally spoke openly about his life, the revelation felt less like a coming out and more like the natural evolution of a man who had always chosen truth over convenience. Tom Hulce, the Mozart who played in silence. The genius of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart lived and breathed through Tom Hulce's extraordinary performance in Amadeus, earning him an Oscar nomination and cementing his place in cinematic history. But while Mozart's music filled concert halls with joyous celebration, Hulce's own life played out in careful, calculated silence. Behind the accolades and standing ovations, Hulce carried a secret that felt heavier with each passing year. In an era when even whispers about an actor's sexuality could end careers, he chose the path of strategic invisibility. Unlike some colleagues who created elaborate fictional romances, Hulce simply said nothing at all. The media circled like vultures, hungry for confirmation of rumors that seemed to follow him wherever he went. But Hulce had mastered the art of deflection, turning every personal question into a discussion about craft, art, or upcoming projects. His silence wasn't born from shame. It was a survival mechanism in an industry that punished honesty. It wasn't until 2008, long after his days as a leading man had faded, that Hulce quietly acknowledged his truth. The revelation came without fanfare, almost as an afterthought in a career that had already shifted behind the scenes. By then, he had found new life as a Tony Award-winning producer, championing diverse stories and voices that had once been silenced like his own. Jonathan Bailey, The Bridgerton Breakthrough. In the glittering ballrooms of Regency England, Jonathan Bailey embodied every romantic fantasy as Anthony Bridgerton. With his smoldering gazes and passionate embraces, he became Netflix's newest heartthrob, inspiring countless fan theories and romantic daydreams. But behind the period costumes and scripted romance lay a thoroughly modern story of courage. Bailey's journey began in the classical theater world, where Shakespearean training met contemporary reality. Even as he rose through the ranks of British theater, industry voices whispered the same old warnings. Romantic leads don't come out. Audiences won't believe in your heterosexual romances. Your career will suffer. But Bailey belonged to a new generation of actors who refused to accept those limitations. He had watched predecessors sacrifice their authentic selves for roles that might never come, and he decided the price was too high. When Bridgerton catapulted him to international fame, he faced a choice: embrace the closet that came with stardom or risk everything for truth. His decision to live openly didn't destroy his career. It enhanced it. Audiences loved Anthony Bridgerton not despite Bailey's honesty, but because of it. His authenticity brought a depth and vulnerability to the role that no amount of method acting could achieve. He proved that in the right moment, with the right story, truth could be more powerful than any carefully constructed lie. Elliot Page, The Ultimate Transformation. Ellen Page captured hearts as the quirky, pregnant teenager in Juno, earning an Oscar nomination and becoming the face of indie film authenticity. But even as audiences celebrated Page's natural, unguarded performances, the actor was struggling with the ultimate performance, living as someone he wasn't meant to be. The first revelation came in 2014 at a Human Rights Campaign conference. In a speech that left the audience in tears, Page came out as gay, speaking about the violence and discrimination faced by LGBTQ+ individuals. The moment felt like a triumph, a brave actor finally living in truth. But it was only the first act of a much larger story. December 2020 brought a revelation that shocked even Page's most devoted fans. In a carefully crafted social media post, he announced his transition, revealing his true identity as Elliot Page. The statement was both deeply personal and profoundly political, a transgender man claiming his space in an industry that had never seen anything like him. The transformation wasn't just personal, it was professional. Page's role in the Umbrella Academy evolved to reflect his authentic self, making him one of the first major actors to transition publicly while maintaining a leading television role. His journey from Ellen to Elliot became more than a personal victory. It became a roadmap for others struggling with their own hidden truths. Colman Domingo. The revolutionary act of being normal. In Hollywood's complex ecosystem of identity and performance, Colman Domingo achieved something remarkable. He made authenticity look effortless. As a black gay man in an industry that had historically marginalized both identities, Domingo's very presence represented a quiet revolution. From Fear the Walking Dead to Euphoria to his Emmy-nominated turn in Rustin, Domingo brought emotional depth and intelligence to every role. But what set him apart wasn't just his talent. It was his refusal to compartmentalize his identity. He didn't hide his sexuality, but he didn't lead with it either. He simply existed, fully and completely, in every space he entered. Married to designer Raul Domingo, Colman spoke about his personal life with the same casual confidence he brought to his professional work. There were no grand coming-out statements, no dramatic revelations. His approach was revolutionary in its normalcy, a black gay man living openly without apology or explanation. This understated approach carried profound power. In an industry where LGBTQ+ actors, particularly those of color, often felt pressure to choose between authenticity and opportunity, Domingo proved that excellence could coexist with honesty. His success opened doors not through confrontation, but through the simple act of being undeniably authentically himself. Dan Amboyer. The prince who chose truth. Dan Amboyer seemed destined for a different kind of Hollywood story. With his classic good looks and polished demeanor, he landed roles that typecast him as the perfect man, Prince William in television movies, the ideal boyfriend in romantic comedies. Hollywood had packaged him as its newest heartthrob, and the future seemed bright and predictable. But Amboyer carried a secret that made his princely roles feel like elaborate performances. Behind the romantic leading man facade lived a gay man, growing increasingly uncomfortable with the deception his career demanded. Every love scene felt fraudulent, every interview about his ideal woman, another small betrayal of his authentic self. The breaking point came in 2017, when Amboyer could no longer sustain the lie. His coming out wasn't triggered by scandal or media pressure. It was a proactive choice to live authentically, even if it meant sacrificing the carefully constructed image that had defined his career. The industry response surprised everyone, including Amboyer himself. Instead of career suicide, his honesty was met with respect and support from colleagues and fans. He had expected punishment for his truth, but instead found freedom. His courage became a beacon for other actors standing at the same crossroads, torn between career advancement and personal authenticity. Ricky Martin, La Vida Loca in the Closet. Ricky Martin's hips didn't lie, but for decades, everything else about his public persona did. As the king of Latin pop, he embodied passionate masculinity, the sex symbol who drove millions wild with Livin' La Vida Loca and She Bangs. But behind the explosive performances and carefully orchestrated romance rumors lived a man slowly suffocating under the weight of his own success. The late 90s and early 2000s belonged to Ricky Martin. His concerts were religious experiences, his music videos, cultural phenomena. But every interview became an exercise in creative fiction, every question about his love life another opportunity to reinforce the heterosexual fantasy that had made him famous. The pressure wasn't just professional, it was cultural. As one of the most visible Latino entertainers in the world, Martin felt the weight of representation. Coming out could shatter not just his career, but the dreams of millions who saw him as their connection to mainstream American culture. It took until 2010 for Martin to find his voice. His coming out wasn't a media interview or red carpet revelation. It was a letter posted on his personal website, raw and honest, and completely on his own terms. The response was overwhelming, transforming Martin from a closeted pop star into a global advocate for LGBTQ+ rights and proving that authenticity could be even more powerful than fantasy. Jim Parsons. The Big Bang of Authenticity. Sheldon Cooper was a character defined by his rigid adherence to logic, his inability to lie, and his complete comfort with being exactly who he was. The irony wasn't lost on Jim Parsons that he was playing television's most authentically weird character while hiding his own authentic self from the world. The Big Bang Theory made Parsons one of television's highest-paid actors, earning him 4 Emmy Awards and global recognition. But success came with familiar pressures. Maintain the image, protect the show, don't rock the boat. Parsons found himself in the strange position of being celebrated for his character's inability to pretend while spending his own life doing exactly that. but Parsons belonged to a generation of actors who had witnessed the cost of closeted living. He had watched older performers sacrifice decades to maintain facades that ultimately benefited no one. His approach was different, quiet authenticity rather than dramatic revelation. When Parsons finally lived openly, it felt less like a coming out and more like a natural evolution. His personal life became an open book, his relationship with Todd Spywak a source of joy rather than anxiety. The revelation enhanced rather than diminished his performances, bringing new depth to roles that showcased his range beyond Sheldon Cooper's brilliant eccentricity. Zachary Quinto, from hero to villain to hero again. As Siler in Heroes, Zachary Quinto perfected the art of calculated menace, his dark eyes concealing murderous intentions behind an almost angelic face. Later, as Spock in the Star Trek reboot, he channeled logic and restraint with equal intensity. But behind both performances lived a man struggling with his own internal conflict between desire and duty. For years, Quinto maintained the careful balance that defined closeted Hollywood actors. Never quite lying, never quite telling the truth. He deflected personal questions with the same precision he brought to his villainous roles, keeping his private life locked away from public scrutiny. The catalyst for change came from tragedy. When teenager Jamie Rodemeyer committed suicide after anti-gay bullying, Quinto could no longer justify his silence. In a powerful blog post, he came out as gay and dedicated his revelation to young people desperate for role models who looked like them. The response exceeded all expectations. Instead of career damage, Quinto found career expansion. His honesty opened doors to more complex roles, more interesting projects, more meaningful work. He had feared that coming out would limit his opportunities, but instead it revealed new depths in his performances that audiences had never seen before. Rupert Everett. The price of being first. Rupert Everett paid the price for other people's freedom. As one of the first major actors to come out in the 1980s, he became an unwitting pioneer in an industry that punished such honesty with swift and merciless career destruction. Everett's early career blazed with promise. His performances in Another Country and My Best Friend's Wedding showcased a rare combination of wit, charm, and emotional depth. He seemed destined for leading man status, the kind of career that could span decades and genres. But Everett chose truth over trajectory. His decision to live openly in an era when such honesty was career suicide cost him dearly. Directors stopped calling, romantic leads went to other actors, and the promising trajectory flattened into a cautionary tale that would be whispered about for decades. Yet Everett's sacrifice wasn't meaningless. His visibility in the 80s and 90s normalized gay representation in British cinema, paving the way for future generations who would face fewer obstacles. He bore the brunt of industry homophobia so that others wouldn't have to, becoming a reluctant martyr for a cause he never asked to champion but embraced with characteristic wit and dignity. Neil Patrick Harris. How I Met My Authentic Self. Barney Stinson was legendary, a womanizing, suit-obsessed bachelor whose entire existence revolved around elaborate schemes to seduce women. The character became a cultural phenomenon, inspiring catchphrases, fashion choices, and countless imitators. The cosmic irony was that he was brought to life by a gay man who had spent years perfecting his own elaborate performance. Neil Patrick Harris had been performing since childhood, first as the boy genius Doogie Howser, then through various roles that showcased his versatility. But his greatest performance was the one no one saw, the straight leading man he played in real life. The contradiction became unbearable during How I Met Your Mother's run. Here was Harris, bringing depth and humanity to a character defined by his heterosexual conquests, while hiding his own relationship with David Burtka. The show's success made the deception more elaborate, requiring constant vigilance to maintain the illusion. Harris's 2006 coming out was remarkable for its simplicity, No dramatic interviews, no strategic media campaigns, just a straightforward acknowledgement of his authentic self. The response was overwhelmingly positive, proving that audiences cared more about talent than personal life. His career flourished. His relationship with Burtka became a source of public joy, and Barney Stinson became even more legendary. Ian McKellen, the Gandalf of gay rights. Sir Ian McKellen's voice had commanded stages for decades, bringing Shakespeare's greatest characters to life with unmatched power and precision. But in 1988, when the British government threatened to criminalize the mere discussion of homosexuality in schools, McKellen found his most important role: himself. For decades, McKellen had lived with the careful discretion that defined his generation of actors. His sexuality was an open secret in theater circles, but public acknowledgement could destroy not just individual careers but entire productions. The unspoken rule was simple: don't ask, don't tell, and everyone profits. Section 28 changed everything. The proposed law would have made McKellen's very existence a forbidden topic, relegating gay people to the shadows of society. For an actor who had spent his life illuminating the human condition, such legislated darkness was intolerable. His coming out was a declaration of war against systemic homophobia. McKellen didn't just acknowledge his sexuality, he weaponized it, becoming one of Britain's most effective LGBTQ+ advocates. His activism enhanced rather than diminished his artistic legacy, adding moral authority to performances in X-Men and Lord of the Rings that reached global audiences. Gandalf's wisdom was enhanced by McKellen's courage. Matt Bomer, The White-Collar Confession. Matt Bomer embodied effortless sophistication as Neil Caffrey in White Collar, the charming con artist whose greatest scam was convincing everyone he was exactly what he appeared to be. The irony wasn't lost on those who knew the truth, that Bomer's greatest performance was the straight leading man he played off-screen. With his classical features and undeniable charisma, Bomer seemed designed for romantic leading roles. Hollywood had big plans for the actor who could embody both vulnerability and strength, innocence and experience. But those plans required maintaining the carefully constructed heterosexual image that had launched countless careers. Behind the scenes, Bomer lived authentically with his partner Simon Hulce and their 3 children. His personal life was an open secret in Hollywood circles, but public acknowledgement remained professionally dangerous. The industry's message was clear: you can be gay, but you can't be openly gay and expect to play straight romantic leads. The turning point came in 2012 at an awards ceremony honoring his HIV advocacy work. In thanking his family, Bomer casually mentioned Simon and their children, making his personal life public without fanfare or dramatics. The simple acknowledgement was more powerful than any elaborate coming-out campaign could have been, proving that authenticity could be both revolutionary and completely natural. Wilson Cruz, the prime-time pioneer. Wilson Cruz didn't set out to make history when he auditioned for My So-Called Life in 1994. He was a young Latino actor looking for work, not a pioneer preparing to shatter television's most enduring taboo. But his casting as Ricky Vasquez, the first openly gay teenager on primetime television, transformed him into an unlikely revolutionary. The role came with extraordinary pressure. Cruz wasn't just playing a character, he was representing an entire community that had never seen itself reflected in mainstream media. Every line delivery carried political weight, every scene a potential breakthrough or setback for LGBTQ+ visibility. The personal cost was immediate and devastating. Cruz's own father disowned him when he came out, unable to reconcile his son's authentic life with his own expectations and fears. The young actor found himself homeless and struggling, supported only by the newfound family he discovered in the show's cast and crew. But Cruz's courage changed everything. Ricky Vasquez opened doors for every LGBTQ+ character who followed, proving that audiences were hungry for authentic representation. Cruz's subsequent career, from Party of Five to Star Trek, Discovery to 13 Reasons Why, continued pushing boundaries, always with the knowledge that his visibility mattered to young people who desperately needed to see themselves reflected on screen. The stories of these 15 actors reveal a profound truth about the cost of authenticity in an industry built on illusion. Each faced the same impossible choice: sacrifice their true selves for career security, or risk everything for the freedom to live honestly. Their journeys illuminate three essential insights about courage and change. First, that authenticity, when finally embraced, often proves more powerful than any carefully constructed facade. The very qualities these actors feared would limit them: their honesty, their vulnerability, their refusal to pretend, became the source of their most compelling performances. Second, that progress happens through individual acts of courage that collectively transform entire systems. Each actor who chose truth over safety made the path easier for those who followed, creating the more inclusive industry we see today. Finally, the price of living authentically, though often steep, is always worth paying. The relief, the freedom, the ability to bring one's whole self to both life and work. These rewards far outweigh the temporary career concerns that once seemed so overwhelming. Their courage changed Hollywood forever. Honor their legacy by sharing this story, subscribing to witness more untold truths, and remembering that authenticity is always worth the risk.